On the fly. Yeah. All right.
Oh.
Suzanne, what is the proper pronunciation of your last name?
Dergacheva.
Get that, Nick?
Dergacheva. You think of it like, you know how to say Gorbachev? You say Dergachev. Yeah. Dergachev.
Dergachev?
Yeah.
Wait, can you put it in?
I am
here.
Yeah, right now. And I'll let you put the phonetics in if you want.
Add your own phonetics. That's usually a good idea.
Dergachev.
All right.
Yeah. Need any help with my Nick? Just kidding.
That's Glein, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't know your name by now. He's fired.
Is Leslie Glynn? That's both ends.
All right.
And it's okay, because if Nick mispronounces it, we can always edit it out and redo it.
I don't know. I've been working with you, Leslie, for what, 10?
Yeah, 9 or 10 years. Oh, yeah.
I like how it says primary topic. John, do not talk about.
Don't say that, John, as you're reading it.
So the topics we're not going to talk about are...
All right. Any last minute questions? I think we're ready to roll.
I'm ready.
Nick, fix your camera.
Man, I was on it's funny. So many people, you get on the phone with them and literally you're just looking at like from the bottom of their mouth up.
Yeah.
I prefer that. It's my good side.
Nice.
All right.
Actually.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay. This is Talking Drupal, a weekly chat about web design and development from a group of guys with one thing in common. We love Drupal. This is episode 243, Our Community. Welcome to Talking Drupal. Our thoughts are with the Drupal community as the world continues to fight COVID-19. On today's show, we'll talk with Suzanne and Leslie from the Drupal Association Board about what the community can do to help during this time of need. What's new with you this week, Stephen?
Hey, guys. Hope everyone is doing well. Staying at home, getting closer with your family and friends, but not too close, right? So, for this week, man, nothing. These weeks are all kind of blending into each other, aren't they? I don't think I mentioned this last week, but it's interesting. My younger daughter's home from college because all the college kids are home, studying from home. And it's kind of a unique experience for us because she's moving to Arizona in July. So if this hadn't come about, we wouldn't have this extra time close with her during the last few months that she's around here. So when you try to looking at some of the blessings you get during these times, that's one of them for us. Another kind of unique experience we had this week that probably many other families are doing is that my niece's birthday was last week. So usually our families kind of congregate to my sister's house for a birthday. So what do you do instead? We had a Zoom birthday. Everyone made a cake at their house. Everyone decorated, and we hung out and played games on Zoom for a couple of hours and celebrated her birthday together. So it's been an interesting time.
And how about you, John? What's new with you this week?
So I'm gonna keep going with the Arizona theme Stephen started off, and we had this conversation in one of our Slack channels at Oomph recently. Apparently, the Major League Baseball has discussed the idea of having 30 teams and personnel assemble in Phoenix in May and isolate themselves from the rest of the world, basically sequestered in hotels, and then use Chase Field plus 10 spring training sites plus 3 college fields to have a kind of a smaller version of the MLB season and be able to still have Major League Baseball.
Like a tournament kind of format, maybe? Or like going on for months and months?
No, going on for months and months. Really? So the part of the quote here was like no family members would be allowed. Nobody would be allowed to watch them play the games except like staff, but the staff would have to sit in the stands 6 feet apart. So kind of very interesting kind of weird setup that they came up with. And, I think the whole thing is to, I think it's twofold, right? It's trying to return us to a little bit of normalcy and be able to like play sports, but also I think coming into the Major League Baseball season, they're hoping that we can kind of get the virus under control and they'll be able to actually have a season. Also, somebody in the chat speculated that they're trying to be the first sport to come back on television because they have a pretty captive audience right now. No pun intended. So, Nick, what's going on with you?
So this week, I got Animal Crossing, which is the latest and greatest Nintendo game.
It's a Nintendo game? I thought we were actually going to talk about Animal Crossings, like on the street. Oh, man. All right. No. Never mind. Sorry.
No, I'm enjoying it. One thing that I think is kind of interesting is after the first few minutes of play, it goes real time, which I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of because that means every time I play it, it's night out and it feels like nothing is really going on. I'll give it a few more days, see kind of how it goes, but it's a pretty slow paced game, kind of relaxing.
What's the premise of the game, Nick?
You kind of purchase a ticket to a getaway island and you're there with a couple of computers and I think you can eventually visit other people's islands. But the idea is that you just kind of gather resources and, build a life for yourself on the island. You have the ability to move, mine, get materials and yeah, it kind of is. It's kind of funny, but like I said, I'm kind of enjoying the game. It is real time, so I'm only playing, in the evening, and like I said, it's always dark, so it's kind of depressing. But maybe I'll change my region so it'll be somewhere where it's during the day. The other thing that I'm looking at doing this week is I've been kind of toying with the idea of setting up a coronavirus calendar, and what I'm planning on doing with that is kind of just writing out. Almost like a diary, the times I've left the house, what I did, because, my wife and I, we leave the house every day during normal times. I mean, even if it's just to go shopping or walk around or go see a movie, we went to see movies 2 or 3 times a week. We went out to eat a couple times a week. So it's been very different going out, once every week or every other week. So I'm thinking of kind of putting it on a calendar just to kind of see, how, so in the future I can look back and see what it was like, during this time. So I'm looking to put that together. It's also kind of something to keep us occupied for maybe a day, looking back, but that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. So joining us this week, we have a couple of guests. Our first guest this week is Leslie Glynn. She has extensive background in software development and project management, as well as training. She started working with Drupal in 2011 and has been contracting with Redfin Solutions in Maine for the past 4 years. She's heavily involved with the Drupal community. She's an event organizer for both Design for Drupal Boston and NetCamp. She's on the Event Organizers Working Group board. She's an Event Organizers Working Group board member and volunteers at almost every Drupal camp and DrupalCon over the past 5 to 10 years. She also helps organize sprints and mentors up-and-coming Drupal developers. She's also involved in the Boston Drupal meetup and was elected as the community member for the Drupal Association Board of Directors last year in 2019. Welcome, Leslie.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me.
This is a welcome back, right, Leslie? You've been on the show once or twice in the past.
I think at least a couple times before, yes. Yep.
Also joining us this week, and I believe this is her first appearance on the show, is Suzanne Dergacheva. She started Evolving Web in 2007 and began using Drupal in 2008, right around the same time that I did, actually. She's been running Evolving Web's Drupal training program since 2011 and got involved in the Montreal Drupal community, helping organize camps and as well as speaking at Drupal camps and Drupal cons about multilingual front-end development and user experience. Most recently, she's been involved in promoting Drupal, the Drupal Admin User Experience Study, and was elected to the board of the DA in 2018. She helps lead the Community and Governance Committee and focuses on getting event organizers and local association leads organized to promote Drupal together. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Suzanne, where are you joining us from?
From Montreal.
Oh, okay, great.
From Canada.
And Leslie is joining us from her secluded apartment in
Danvers, Massachusetts.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So let's start off with talking about what we've had a couple of shows about the Drupal Association, but for our new listeners, what exactly does the Drupal Association do? And I might direct that at Leslie.
Sure. So the Drupal Association does a lot to support the Drupal project, the code base of the Drupal project, and also the Drupal community. So one thing that people probably know the most about is Drupal.org. That's where the code is hosted. A lot of collaboration tools are there. But it also provides for Drupal updates, security updates, that type of stuff. So really, Drupal.org is one of the primary things that the Drupal Association is responsible for infrastructure-wise. But they also support and run DrupalCon. And, that brings in a lot of new Drupal members each year. And it also provides for businesses and, personal development opportunities for the attendees. So it's a great opportunity for those involved with the Drupal project to come together. And for the community itself, they do things like, provide funds for grants and scholarships to go to things like DrupalCon. They do marketing. They try to help promote and grow the Drupal project itself. So there's a lot that the Drupal Association does that a lot of people that use Drupal aren't even aware of.
And I'll just add, even being a board member, there's things that the Drupal Association does that I just lose track of. There's just so many things. I met up with some people on the engineering team recently, and they're working on helping with automatic updates and integrating Drupal.org better with GitLab. So there's always new infrastructure improvements that are going on.
So, Leslie, you had mentioned the Drupal Association and DrupalCon. Obviously that's their biggest event of the year. What's the current? Can you give us an update on what the current status of DrupalCon is?
Sure. So there's the current status is that we're really on a holding pattern, waiting to hear what Minneapolis does in terms of shutting things down through the end of May. Right now, they've closed things down to the point of time in May, right before when DrupalCon is going to happen. So we're waiting for them to officially say that you can't hold events such as DrupalCon, so that some of the contracts that the Drupal Association has with venues and with hotels and such, we can work on getting those canceled.
And yeah, so basically, just for our listeners really quick, in the event world, my wife's in the event world, there's a thing called force majeure. So that basically is a government entity or a act of God preventing you from having your event. Every event contract has that in there. True to say, Leslie, that right now, City of Minneapolis for DrupalCon hasn't hit the force majeure deadline?
To my understanding, yes, that's correct.
Perfect. But what about DrupalCon in Barcelona?
DrupalCon in Barcelona has been postponed until, and I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but until December. So right now they're thinking they can still possibly hold an in-person event. So to the best of their knowledge, they pushed it to December. Obviously, things may change depending on, what the situation is at that time or leading up to that time.
And just out of curiosity, do either of you know when the next update from the Drupal Association is going to come out on this topic?
We don't know the exact date yet. It's going to be, but look in the coming weeks, there's going to be for sure updates coming out.
And I mean, the DA has been doing a great job of communicating.
Okay, so John, we couldn't hear you just then.
Yeah, I know. I muted myself.
Question. Go ahead. That's fine.
Let me start back with, so the Drupal Association has been doing a great job of communicating out to everybody and setting expectations on when they're going to be communicating. So that's awesome.
So in regards to the Drupal Association and DrupalCon, what are the priorities that the association has in regards to that event?
Well, that's a great question. There's so many important activities that go on at DrupalCon. It's really the time when everyone in the community gets together. Of course, one of the biggest things is sharing knowledge. So there's the training aspect. There's all the talks. We get a lot of people coming up to DrupalCon who are new to the community. There's a new track for content editors and marketers that was really popular last year. So it's also a place where people come to just evaluate the quote unquote product of Drupal. And in addition to that, there's all the work that goes into contributions and kind of kicking off contributions. There's the contribution day, which is incredibly popular, and there's mentorship, which I know Leslie's really involved in, that goes on always at the DrupalCon, that encourages people to contribute for the first time. And so DrupalCon is really a place for all of those aspects of the community to happen. And there's lots of other things that I didn't even mention, like roundtables and BOFs that are really, really important to the community.
Now, if we go under the assumption for this question that DrupalCon does not happen and is not postponed, are there discussions about how to maybe replace some of those things with some other events that could be scheduled in a different way or in the future? Maybe not as DrupalCon, but other ways to fill those gaps?
So there's a lot of thought that has gone into, the possibilities of what, what happens with DrupalCon. Whether some things are done virtually, or whether, as you said, there are other options. None of those decisions have been definitively been made yet. I think we're waiting for, as John correctly said, force majeure to see, what happens with that. But yes, they are looking at all possibilities, all the different scenarios that could happen going forward.
Yeah, I imagine the logistics are different because there were a couple of camps that went virtual, but I imagine the logistics are different for a camp of 100 to 150 people going virtual versus a convention with multiple thousands of people.
Yeah.
And interesting.
I was at MidCamp a couple weeks ago presenting, and it was really fun. But yeah, that was a couple hundred people, and this would be just so much bigger. And also, at a camp, there's often a lot of people who have been there before, and they know folks, and and at a DrupalCon, when you have so many newcomers and people from so many different backgrounds and areas, I think it's a bit harder to coordinate.
So let's talk about when kind of this came onto your radar, right? So obviously, global pandemic started in China, kind of moved across the globe, right? At what point did the Drupal Association, DrupalCon team put this on their radar as like something that they had to be concerned about?
So obviously they were watching it as things started to evolve, but towards the mid to end of February, discussions really started to take place. The beginning of March, there were a lot of meetings, so it's been pretty steady. It seems like it's been years that we've been talking about this, but it's only been, a month and a half or so that we've been in active discussions about the impact and, what we can do to make up for, some of these things possibly not happening.
Don't feel bad about that, Leslie. I feel like I've been in my house for like 6 months. I think everybody feels that way.
Yeah, I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about. The individual days are very much running together, and the weeks are still going fast. But the mental stress of managing, such a massive disruption to life is, it feels like it's like sometimes it feels like it's been like this for years, and in reality, it's been. I mean, the actual major changes have been here for like 3 weeks to a month. The information's kind of been around for maybe 3 months, but it's a significant change. How about you, Suzanne? When did this kind of come on the radar for you?
So ironically, I spent the first 2 months of the year traveling nonstop. So every time I took a flight, it just more and more people wearing face masks and more feeling like it's coming closer. So it was, right at the beginning of March that I came back from a trip and the lockdown started. So
now, being in Canada and obviously having a lot of contact with people in the U.S., are the countries handling the situation mostly the same?
That's a great question. I have family in New York, so I'm just obviously very worried about them. And I think the government here in Quebec is handling the situation pretty well, and we're hoping it's nearing the peak. So right. I'm very encouraged by the response of the, my neighbors and the community and the government at large. But I think it's we're facing a similar situation everywhere in North America.
So one of the things that came out of one of the initial blog posts regarding DrupalCon that I think surprised a lot of people. I mean, obviously we knew that there was a large financial impact of DrupalCon on the Drupal Association, but there was a range of a funding gap that was given between $400,000 and $1.1 million as kind of the best case and worst case scenario. I have kind of a few questions about this, but the main one is what contributes to that $700,000 difference, and why is there kind of a floor of $400,000 no matter what?
Yeah, so I can take that question. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. First of all, you want to consider that DrupalCon is usually a source of revenue for the Drupal Association, and the revenue is used to fund other programs. So like we mentioned, Drupal.org and all those other things we talked about that don't make, DrupalCon as the primary source of revenue for that. You also have to take into account the fact that like most of the expenses, other than things like booking the venue and paying for food and like the actual running the conference, it's a lot of staff expenses. So the staff have been working on DrupalCon already for many months, and basically since the last one. So there's all of those funds.
Okay.
And then just in terms of the range, it's really because we don't know all the full details of the situation yet. And we also have sponsorship money that's already been pledged, and a lot of those sponsors, like really amazingly, have, before we even asked, already said that they were going to not ask for the sponsorship money back in the case that the event was canceled or postponed. And so one of the factors is just like how many of those sponsors are willing to do that.
So it sounds like, kind of what I assumed was the case. It depends on how many contracts we're able to get refunds for. It just wasn't very clear in I think the initial blog post, which is, why that question was there.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
When will you know that the gap has been covered? I imagine that there's a hard push for fundraising. People are responding to the call. There's still a lot of unknowns of what the actual expenses are going to look like because we still are a month out from when DrupalCon will be. When do you expect to kind of know, the final numbers and, what the fundraiser has, the funding push has kind of achieved?
So the Drupal Association has, somebody that works on finances who are actively tracking everything and making sure that all the different scenarios are covered so that, we can do the best we can in terms of estimating what that need will be and what that need eventually becomes. Really depends on the financial contributions, how much people donate, and we'll talk about different ways to fundraise. I'm sure as funds come in, they'll be very transparent with the community in terms of where that gap lies at any point in time. And I know Heather's been doing some blog posts, stating, we've had a tremendous amount of donors the past couple of days, and this is where, how much we've raised over that amount of time. So we'll know where we stand as the next few weeks go by.
Do you know how much has been raised in the last few weeks since that announcement, including increased subscriptions and new subscriptions to the association?
I personally don't know. I know Heather put in some of her tweets just what the Drupal Cares campaign, which we'll talk about, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that, how much that is raised. But that's there's different ways to bring in funding, and I can't give you overall what has been brought in right now. I don't have access to that information.
There's a campaign goal for Drupal Cares, which is, I guess, we'll talk about that specifically, but there's 13% out of a 500K goal. And you can see that. It doesn't look like a thermometer, but it's supposed to be like a donation thermometer on the campaign page. And then there's also been a steady stream of individual members joining and supporting partners, renewing their partnerships. So those things also help. And we don't have specific numbers for those, but we've just seen increased support there, which is great.
Very good.
This episode is sponsored by Oomph. Do you have a topic you need to know more about? Do you need some help with planning a project? Are you looking for training in web accessibility, Drupal site building, project management, or analytics? If so, Oomph's training and consulting services can help your team develop and enhance core competencies that serve to optimize your organization's digital strategies. From packaged training programs to highly customized workshops, Oomph can help your team reach a higher level of excellence. Oomph would love to help with your training or consulting needs. Learn more about Oomph's training and consulting services at oomphinc.com/training.
So kind of getting back to the Drupal Cares that we were just talking about, how can the community help, and what is the Drupal Cares campaign?
So the Drupal Cares campaign really was just launched this week, and it's just a way to organize the fundraising efforts across the Drupal community to help, with that $500,000, at least $500,000 gap due to the potential loss of DrupalCon. So that's what it is. There are many different ways that people can contribute as an individual or as an organization to that fund, to that Drupal Cares campaign.
So what are they?
Sure. I can do the individual ones, and then maybe Suzanne can talk about the from an organizational level. So from an individual level, I'm an individual. What can I do? First thing you can do is just join the Drupal Association as an individual member. There are some benefits to that. There's a new newsletter that will be sent to members of the Drupal Association. There's a badge that gets added to your Drupal.org profile. But you're supporting the Drupal community as an individual member, which can be anywhere from $15, and then there's different levels going up to $1,000 a year as a member of the Drupal Association. So you can either join if you're not a member now. If you are a member, you can increase your membership level. You can make a charitable donation. So there's a new donation form where you can just go in and make a donation. The Drupal Association is a nonprofit, in case folks didn't understand that. So it is a charitable donation, and you can make that at any level. And the Drupal Cares campaign kind of is keeping a running list at the bottom to show some of the individuals that have contributed recently to the Drupal Cares campaign. They also are going to at some point, and we've been talking about how to recognize people who have always contributed and not just the people who have, contributed just recently to this campaign.
I will say I recently made an additional donation to my membership, and it was super easy. You can do it right from the Drupal.org homepage. There's some links you can follow. You can jump in there and you can make the donation. I was actually it was encouraging to see. I was at the Boston Drupal meetup with Leslie a couple days ago, and the organizer of that meetup pledged to donate a certain dollar amount per individual at the meetup, and then one person said, "Oh, I'll match that," and then I think maybe one other person said that they would match it. So the community is really, coming together to kind of help this initiative, and the Drupal Association's made it pretty easy. So if you haven't donated yet, I would recommend going out and doing it.
Great, thanks. And one thing I'd just say quickly on that is I just talked about the ways financially that people can support the Drupal Association. Hopefully we'll have a minute, later on to talk about the ways that, maybe not other than financial, if people cannot it's hard, this is hard time for a lot of people. So what are ways that people can contribute in addition to, donating money?
So Leslie, I have a question about the CARES program and the 13,000, how they're tracking that. So I also renewed my membership at a higher rate than I had in the past. And my name doesn't show up on the site, which is fine, but I want to make sure that that money gets recognized somehow in the 13% so we can see that the number is going up. Is there a way? What funds are included in this considered included in this campaign, and what funds aren't? So if I was already a previous member and I increased the amount of money that I gave, does that show up here or not? Or do it have to be tagged somehow as Drupal Cares?
That's a good question. As I said, this was just launched this week. I also increased my membership level, and I'm also not here on the list, and that's totally irrelevant. But what we want to make sure is that we recognize people who have contributed, who have increased their membership, not just individually, but from an organizational level. A lot of that isn't in place yet just because this is so new and everything is moving so quickly. And the Drupal Association is trying at a very limited staff level to keep up with all of this. So yes, it may not appear here right now, but at some point we want to make sure everybody's recognized for everything they contribute to the community and to the Drupal Association.
I'll just also highlight for individuals, I'm so happy every time I hear someone's become a member. There's 1,400,000 users on Drupal.org. That's a lot of users. And I think if you go to the Wikipedia page for Drupal, it says, Drupal has 1,400,000 some odd members. But the Drupal Association actually has 2,217 members, which is a surprisingly low number of people who are actually members. And it's such an easy thing to do, to set up a membership that just renews every year. And at whatever level you can be a member. I mean, like Leslie said, the lowest membership level is very affordable. So I really encourage everyone, if nothing else, just to go today and become a member.
So if I wanted to tell my customers or my colleagues, encourage them to go ahead and do this, do you guys know if you've gotten to the point yet that you have any canned text or email templates or something that I could use as a way to craft some content to say, hey, this is important, these are the key points, please go do this? Is there anything out there like that?
That's a really good point. We were on a committee meeting this morning for the Drupal Association, and that was brought up as something that we are working on, because that would be very helpful, both from an individual membership standpoint and from an organizational, to have a message that we're giving to everybody that not only tells, asks for support, but also tells them why we need support and introduces them to the Drupal Association and, what it does for the community and the project.
So looking down, before we get onto the organizational benefits, looking down the road, this crisis could be very beneficial in terms of helping the organization maybe fine-tune its messaging and its awareness, right? Because there's a lot of emphasis being put on it.
Hopefully.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how this crisis is obviously causing a lot of people to move very quickly to change how they do business, and then, of course, run events and do campaigns. And so I think across the board, you're seeing people just adapting and innovating very quickly. So Drupal Association is no exception.
So Suzanne, what are some of the ways organizations can support?
I'm so glad you asked. Organizations also have a supporting partner program that they can participate in. It's something that we at Evolving Web have contributed to over the years, and many other organizations do the same. There's a classic supporting partner level, $2,500 a year, and basically you can support the Drupal Association's activities. You can also donate as an organization. It's a way to just give a bit extra. And something else that you can do is encourage your staff to become members, or even pay for their memberships if you want to just go make sure it happens. So an organization could pay $1,000 and have that be applied to individual memberships for their employees? Yeah, you can. At the moment, it's not automated, but if you contact the Drupal Association, you can pay for the memberships for all your staff.
Very interesting.
That's a great way for an organization to get their employees introduced to the association and maybe get them kick-started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Members, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm a little more interested too in kind of what Stephen brought up a little earlier about, or I'm thinking of approaching some clients that have been using Drupal now for many years, and encouraging them to, become members to help with this. Has there been any discussion in having like a different level? Because right now there's two types of memberships really. There's the the individual membership and the supporting organization, but the organizations in my mind have always been like agencies, companies that are building the sites. Whereas I wonder if there's an opportunity for kind of Drupal user organizations to kind of have some sort of membership where they may not be contributing directly to the project, but they're aware that they utilize the software in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something I just had a conversation about yesterday. I was making a list of all of our organizations we work with to get in touch with them and encourage them to participate. There is another supporting partner program level called the community level. It's $1,000 a year, and there are many organizations that give at that level too. And already there are user organizations like universities who are supporting partners in some capacity.
So this brings up a question for me. I know that Drupal Association is a nonprofit, and we're donating our hard-earned money to go to this nonprofit organization. I'm not aware of the transparency level on where the money goes and budgets, and are there details that the organization shares with the members about the annual budgets and things like that?
Yeah, so every year there's at DrupalCon, but also actually it's always broadcast, I believe, as a Zoom or something. There's a Drupal Association public board meeting, and there's also financial information published, so you can kind of see how much money was brought in through things like DrupalCon, and then what the general expense categories were. So just like any other nonprofit, there's that kind of annual report.
Okay. So what have we missed in terms of ways that the community can help? Have we missed anything?
Yeah, just one thing that I have from an organizational standpoint, and Redfin Solutions, the company that I contract with, just did this. Companies that were sponsoring in-person events, like Redfin was sponsoring Design for Drupal Boston, which we canceled due to the virus. They took their funds, and instead of sponsoring the camp this year, they put them into becoming a supporting partner. So redirecting funds that you have earmarked towards one thing for supporting Drupal could very well be focused on helping the Drupal Association in a broader sense this year.
That's a really interesting idea. So if you were running a Drupal camp, which we do, and our camp is in November, I mean, John, we're going to have another meeting in the next few weeks, right? But something to consider, even though November is pretty far away, is do you ask your sponsors we hold some sort of Ned Camp conference, but maybe we take some of those funds that people would have sponsored and move them into this for this year. That's an interesting idea. Any thoughts about that, John?
I do know that there has been some talk with various camps. I think Mike Anello and Mike Herschel down in Florida with the Florida camp have talked about having camps kind of support this initiative in one way or another. And I think it's by donating. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's important. It's important for camps to step up and say, hey, you know what? The Drupal Association needs our help. And, we've benefited from the Drupal Association's help in the past. So let's turn around and give back. And, it doesn't have to be thousands of dollars. It could very easily be, a couple $100. It could very easily be $500. Every little bit helps. And I think, if every Drupal camp out there turns around and says, hey, you know what, you guys helped me out when we needed it. We're going to try to get this camp off the ground, organizing it, and, makes a donation. I think that's a great idea. So, or even putting something on it where you're donating a portion of ticket sales, or donating a portion of virtual attendees, or however you want to do it. I think it's important especially right now, for camps to step up and do something.
Right, and that's a really good segue. Thanks, John. In terms of how people can, not only financially, but what other ways can they help out? And, one of the ways is just for camp organizers to reach out to their camps, let them know what the Drupal Association does, let them know about this Drupal Cares campaign, just spread the word, go on social media and let people know. The more people who know about the situation the Drupal Association is in and the ways that people can help out, just getting people involved with that knowledge is one of the things that everybody can do to help the Drupal Association out.
Yeah, and we know that it's a time that's it's hard for people to think of contributing when there's so much uncertainty at an individual level, at a business level. So you can always think of creative ways of contributing. At Evolving Web, we run a lot of trainings, a lot of Drupal trainings. And in addition to some donations, we've said, okay, 50% of the revenue from the trainings, we're going to put into the Drupal Cares campaign. And so that way, as we get more people signing up for the trainings, we can put, just earmark some of that money already just to go towards this campaign. So I encourage other people to think of ways like that to contribute. And one last way, other than all these financial contributions, which are very much appreciated, there's never a better time to start contributing to Drupal. And those contributions, code contributions in organizing these virtual conferences, or promoting Drupal, contributing to the Drupal marketing effort. These are all ways that you can also contribute to Drupal that are extremely valuable at this time.
So I'd like to just take a moment and thank you guys for everything that you're doing at the Drupal Association. I imagine that this has been, aside from, personally and professionally, this has been a very stressful time, trying to figure out the path forward. And I just want to let you guys know that it's appreciated. DrupalCon, I've never actually been to DrupalCon. I know John's been to many of them. But I know that DrupalCon does serve a vital role in the Drupal world, and that the Drupal Association provides a lot of services that, I rely on daily, professionally. So we appreciate all the work that you guys have been putting into this. As we wrap, Leslie, where can people find you if they have any questions or would like to contact you?
They can find me at Leslie G on Drupal.org, or Leslie Glynn on Twitter, LinkedIn, and such. And I just want to say one quick last thing, that we talked about ways to help the Drupal community, the Drupal Association. Just in terms of, in general, both the Drupal community and your own community, is just be nice. Reach out to people, help people out. I just want to make sure that people think about that as well in these times.
Yeah, that's definitely an important message. And I think that's one of the, as Stephen said, one of the silver linings, in this time, I've never spoken on the phone to my family. I haven't spoken on the phone this often to my family in a very long time. Now, normally I would see them much more often than I have in the past few weeks. But it's definitely been nice catching up on the phone as well. And how about you, Suzanne? If people want to reach out to you or have any questions, how can they reach you?
Yeah, you can. I'm Pixelite on Drupal Slack or Drupal.org. Or you can find me on Twitter. I'm Suzanne_Kennedy. Easier to spell than Dergacheva. And yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone who has ideas or thoughts or feedback. Yeah.
Thank you. And sorry, are we doing the normal outro stuff? Because we don't have the...
Yeah, it's not in the... Yeah, go ahead.
I don't have it.
Can you remember it?
I can remember. If you want to do the Patreon stuff, John, I can do the newsletter. Thank you, listeners. As always, you can reach us at show@talkingdrupal.com, and you can sign up for our as needed newsletter at talkingdrupal.com/newsletter.
We'd like to take this time to thank all of our patrons. If you would like to support Talking Drupal, become a patron. You can do that by going to talkingdrupal.com and clicking the Become a Patron button in the sidebar.
And John, where can our listeners reach you?
You can find me on all the major social networks and Drupal.org at John Picozzi, and you can find out about Oomph at oomphinc.com.
And how about you, Stephen?
Stephen Cross with a PH on Twitter.
And you can find me, as always, at NixFan, NICXVAN, pretty much everywhere.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
See you next week.
All right, so I left out the patron thing at the bottom because I didn't think it was appropriate, and I forgot to put the newsletter thing in. Like, we're asking people to donate to Drupal Association, then we're talking about at the bottom. It seemed weird. That's why I left it out.
So,
okay.
I guess we could take that out and post.
So I might edit that out and post, we'll see.
It's fine with me.
So, you guys, we didn't touch on any areas you were uncomfortable with. Is there anything you think we need to edit out of this?
I don't think so. How about you, Suzanne?
No, I think it's fine.
I steered clear of the red text. Okay.
All right. Yeah, this is great. I mean, there was one last question in here that someone erased from the agenda, so I didn't ask it, but I'm going to ask it now. Both of you guys, I know, Leslie, you just came on the board this year. Suzanne, you've been on for a couple of years now. So I'm wondering how you guys, it's obviously probably all hands on deck, right now for the Drupal Association to take care of this problem. How has this impacted what your missions were prior to the coronavirus? As board members, how did this impact you? Just curious.
I would say in general,
Yeah.
it's a lot more intense. It's a lot more often, we're meeting more often. There's a lot more individual things that need to be done. So yeah, it's much more intense, which matches the level of the situation going on right now.
It's interesting because some of it's accelerated. Like, we had plans to revamp certain programs, and it's like, well, let's do it faster because this is an opportunity to change how we work. And
Right, and it's trying to keep up with things as they change so quickly. Both with the association and the outside factors is hard to takes time.
You can see it in your personal lives and your business lives, or I've seen so far, that a crisis like this changes your priorities so quickly, and things that seemed important before can drop to the bottom of that list without any stress or anxiety whatsoever when you've got someone organizing your priorities like this out of the clear blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine. How is the rest of the board handling all this?
there's a lot of amazing leaders on the board.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed when I see how people handle this type of situation. So I'm like learning a lot from them also.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm super impressed that how upbeat Heather is every time you see, and obviously she's in one of those leadership roles, but I would imagine when you're in this situation, it's pretty easy to be like not as energetic. And anytime I see a tweet or a statement from her, like even on Twitter, where it's like kind of more like off the cuff, it's always super energetic, super positive. And I think that's awesome.
Her name is Heather Rocks. So she lives up to the
right, and she exudes that throughout the board. So all the board members are like that, and all the meetings and such. Everybody's a positive, can-do attitude, it was great to see. But it comes down from her and Dries, and from the top.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind the Drupal Association will be a better, stronger organization at the end of this. That's awesome. All right, thank you guys for your time. We appreciate you guys jumping on sort of a last-minute show put together here.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Yeah.
We're just looking for ways to, like, this is like something we can add to our list. Oh, we did something else for the campaign. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
This will be out. I'm going to try to push this out quicker than I usually do. So I'm going to try to get it out. Today's Thursday. I'm going to try to get this out before the end of day tomorrow.
That'd be great.
It will be on YouTube, the video, and it will be in our podcast feed.
Oh, there's going to be a video?
Yes.
Oh, there is?
I would have put away my laundry.
Wait.
That wasn't clear in the notes.
I don't think I might have read all the notes. Okay, that's fine.
Is that an issue with you?
No, I look fine.
Jeez,
you both look. You both look fine.
It's just a towel.
It's just a towel.
I'm sitting in my beach chair at my sister's apartment. Come on.
I mean,
Leslie, I was going to ask.
I was wondering about that chair.
That's my only chair, Nick. This is all I have for the next 2 or 3 months, however
Really?
I'm stuck here.
I didn't even really notice. I was like, oh, Leslie's making some great points. And now that you call it out, yeah, I can kind of see that, but
That's all right. It's all about the content, you know.
Oh my God.
Also, Leslie, on that supporting partnership, we have 2 more questions, and then I don't know. I think we're going to be green light on that. But
nice.
I got two more questions for Jason. So
excellent. Thanks. I'm trying to get them to get a sponsorship on Susan. So
yeah, we're gonna try. We're gonna try to do it.
Nice.
And I will say, Jason's been awesome. I sent him like 5 or 6 questions yesterday, and he got me all the right answers.
Nice.
So
good to hear. I'll let them know that.
That's fantastic. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks.
If there's anything else that any messages we could give, we do these shows weekly, so we could insert some information over the next few weeks if you'd like something to be added to our show, or if there's any particular thing you want to mention, we can mention it during the episodes. Happy to do it.
Great.
Thank you.
We'll try and send you an update.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, stay healthy, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too. Bye-bye.
you too.
Bye.